Welcome to Three, a show about Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, and part of the Tennis Channel podcast network. I'm Gill Gross with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. Our coverage ends here with Novak Djokovic winning his second Roland Garros title. He becomes just the third man ever, the first in the Open era, to win all four majors at least twice. A 5-set victory over Stefanos Tsitsipas. He dropped the first two sets, and he's also becomes the first man to beat Rafa in Paris. One of the hardest thing to do in tennis, if we're being honest, and then actually going on to win the trophy. For me, it's one of the finest runs in Novak Djokovic's career. Joel, what will you remember this entire run as, it culminating in this final, but just a special one for Novak, it seems?
Just how incredible he played. The Nadal match, he said, was one of his three best efforts ever in his career. Then this one coming from 2-0 down in the finals. I mean, the statistical stuff is just endless. You could go on with all the things he's done. Now he's got 19 majors. He's halfway to the calendar slam, which no man has done since Rod Laver in 1969. And he's a strong favorite at Wimbledon, which we'll subsequently address in another show. But it just, I think I'll remember things like, okay, the Musetti match, down 2-0. And Novak just turned that around. And the same thing today. I mean, he just finds his way to go about doing things. And we'll talk some more about how he just, he's a super genius. I mean, he transcends some of the ways we think about the game. And that's what makes these guys so incredible.
I think that I will remember that he beat Rafa first and foremost on clay, and that there were two separate matches in the latter part of the tournament where he came back down 2 sets. And a lot of people really think about age just in general, the way they view people. That's one of the first questions they have about players, about people in their lives. How old are you? And that today proved not to be the metric of most significance, because he outlasted a guy who is 22 years old and he is 34 years old. And he proved that there are things more important than age, like your belief in yourself, your confidence, your experience, and your skill set.
Bingo. It was his 29th major final, and it was Stefanos Tsitsipas's first. And the mismatch was not fitness or endurance. The mismatch seemed to be, more than anything, experience, as you said.
Well, we're seeing things in all sports. I mean, when I was growing up watching sports, 30 years old was considered the thing, and it remained that way. But I think we're seeing now in the world of sports, Tom Brady, others have proven that the whole different ways we've got to start looking at the duration of athletes. And Novak, 34 years old. I mean, he was fresh as a daisy. Look at these matches. I think there were a combined total of 8 hours and 22 minutes, the last two matches he played. The Nadal match, unbelievable. And he was fresher than Nadal at the end. And I think he was fresher than Tsitsipas at the end of this match.
Constant problem solving. And doesn't matter what the score is, doesn't matter what the history is. You know, with Nadal, you know, Rafa had a huge run in the third set in Rome, was up 5-0 in the first set in that semifinal. It had been a 6-0 first set in the year prior in the final. Doesn't matter, still looking to problem solve. And he found another solution midway through this match after dropping the first 2 sets. I felt the key was basically cutting out that forehand cross court unless it was absolutely necessary, and only doing it if he could really hit it hard and well, because Tsitsipas's forehand is as legit a shot as there is on the entire tour, and Novak just started peppering that backhand really, really well. Key adjustment, hitting about 10% more often down the line on the forehand for me. Amy, what did you think swung the match when Novak came storming back?
I think in the first 2 sets, Tsitsipas was finding errors and opportunities for, short ball putaways or taking control of the point on the Djokovic forehand. And Novak started to shore that up. And of course, his backhand is impeccable and great in terms of defense. And that looked good for Novak in the first couple of sets. And then in the closing 3 sets, Novak, his shot tolerance, his defense, his court awareness really improved, and there just weren't those opportunities to come in to the net and dominate the point that Tsitsipas likes to do. I mean, I think in the first set, he was 6 of 6 on net points won. And then if you look at his totals in the other sets, I mean, 4 of 6 in the third, 1 of 5 in the fourth. So it just, Tsitsipas started playing Novak's game instead of vice versa.
Well, I think what Novak does so well, and this is going to be his legacy, is really one of footwork and technique in the best possible ways and how they provide options. And I think of our three, the great players in any era, the super geniuses who win multiple majors, whether it's Pete Sampras or Bjorn Borg or Jimmy Connors or Rod Laver, they take it not just to a new level, they bring a new kind of genius. And so we've seen Federer's kind of taken shot making and brought new levels of it. Nadal has taken competitive intensity. Well, Novak, I just mean footwork gives you options. And so the tactical thing you pointed out, Gill, is Novak's ability to arrive in the right place to do what he wants to do with the ball. So we saw on Friday, I've arrived in the right place properly enough. Now I can hit to Nadal's backhand. But now I've arrived in the right place. I don't want to go to that corner for Tsitsipas. I need to go to his backhand. He's a righty. So Novak's ability to do that, to adjust and do it so seamlessly. I mean, it's almost invisible technically. It's not as obvious. Like we've seen how Nadal, go with the inside out forehand, go with the down the line forehand, the off forehand, the cross court. It's very visceral and vivid with Nadal. With Novak, it's subtle because it's so much from the ground up. And I think what we're seeing and what we see is how he's kind of transcends offense and defense and how he applies pressure, because he certainly does each. And we can talk about some moments when he did that, but it's just remarkable testimony to how the brick by brick ways he's built his game, and then the artistry that comes with that, the shots he's able to hit.
I want to hear a little bit more about how does he transcend offense and defense? Do you mean that he's finding offense from defensive positions? Do you mean that it's almost a hybrid, or he's putting pressure? What do you mean by that?
I think it has to do with how we apply pressure, and I think there's a tendency. I like offense and defense, and it's certainly useful through many levels of the game. But I think there's a tendency to see it like a football game, like an American football game. My offense, I'm on defense, I'm on offense. How am I really applying pressure? And so this is the line I use. And I think if you go with me on this, the ancestor of Novak is Chris Evert. And the ancestor of that is sustained depth and balance. And it's if someone hits the ball 4 inches inside your baseline once, wherever they are on the court, think, that's a shot. They do it twice. They're kind of steady. I guess they're playing some good defense because they're not hurting me. Are they hurting me with this second ball that's 4 inches inside the baseline? By the third, wait a second. What's offense and what's defense? By the fourth, you ask if you have the right to an attorney. And I think Tsitsipas, like you said, Amy, how Tsitsipas wasn't playing his game. Yeah, Novak, don't you feel that Novak kind of boxes the opponents into a corner eventually? Like, how many winners do I have to hit? How many big shots do I have to hit against this guy?
Yeah, and I think when I watched the first set, I was a little bit worried that Tsitsipas was getting a lot of free points off of serve. He had 7 aces in the first set, and then he had 7 aces the rest of the match. And not just aces, but he was taking control of the point with his serve in the first set. And I thought, against the greatest returner in the game right now, this ain't gonna last. And they watered the courts too. I think they watered the courts maybe after the third, and then again maybe going into the fifth. That's going to slow stuff down, disadvantage the big server. And I knew that, Novak would find the return, and he sure did. He made so many great returns in this match.
And it's not right. And it's not just defense. It's the application of pressure. It's depth. its accuracy, its placement, all those ways he kept hitting to the backhand, altering the direction of his forehand. So it's not, it's so subtle, but you could see why he's such a great 5-set player, because it's not, you have to go so big against, you have to come up with these shots. And I think, for example, that's the dilemma that Federer has versus Novak. It's big shots, lots and lots of big shots.
Off of unattackable balls.
That's right.
Of balls that are deep and strong and really difficult to attack. The return for Tsitsipas, I think it's survival. It's a survival shot. It's a let me get this back in play, and hopefully I end up in a neutral position. For Djokovic, the return is not always survival. Maybe if he needs to stretch out, into a corner, then maybe. But if you miss your spot at all, or if it's a second serve return for Novak, it's more than survival. It's pressure. It's instant pressure off of that ball. And that's a big difference between the two, I thought, in just how much pressure Tsitsipas was sometimes on, right off of Djokovic's deep return to the backhand. Stefanos doesn't have that return. It's just I hope to get this back in a way that's going to at least allow me to maybe defend and get back in the point, maybe get to neutral, but not a lot of pressure off of the Tsitsipas return.
No, unless he has a chance to kind of really do something with the forehand. Like there, there's several points of this where Novak hit the return to the backhand, and the return did nothing. And you gotta look at these things: the serve game and the return game, and the return, and you see how well Novak managed his serve games too. I mean, he's such a safe cracker. You're so right about the problem solving. I think of our three, he's the most problem solve focused because of the range, and in an odd way, you could see through this tournament what a complete player he is in his version. How do we define complete and what that really means? And I know historically we think of, well, it's Roger, it's the one-hander, it's the volleys. Yeah, that's a form of complete in some ways too, but there's something incredibly comprehensive about the way Djokovic is winning these titles.
There were at least 3 occasions where Tsitsipas put the racket down and did not recover properly, and the ball caught the line unexpectedly or stayed in, and he ended up losing the point. And as a player, that can be really demoralizing because you're rough on yourself. But then to repeat that mistake, 3 times or 2 more times, that's devastating.
Yeah, I think Novak, with his backhand defense and his ability to be in a defensive position and then get it away from the Tsitsipas weapon, which I in a way I do feel a little bit like I'm repeating myself from the Nadal match. And some of the things that Djokovic did so well against Rafa, but now it's a righty instead of a lefty, which means the shots themselves are actually different, but it kind of goes back to completeness and having every shot and having no holes in the baseline game, because there is not a shot from the baseline that Novak does not excel in. And we saw like Tsitsipas's backhand. If you can get him to defend that corner, that's a bigger hole than Novak has in his baseline game right there, right? You can go to Novak, right?
Well, I thought Tsitsipas, sorry to interrupt, I thought Tsitsipas hit the drive backhand pretty well. It's not an offensive weapon. I mean, I think he hit a couple down the line for winner, but typically it's his shield. And I thought it was a good shield for the most part, but what he really doesn't have is a good slice to mix things up on that wing. And that's the piece that some of the greats that have a one-handed backhand do have. So he doesn't have it right now. He could add that piece later for sure. I mean, our 3 have added multiple things to their games and evolved over the years. But I think that really hurt him.
Yeah, well, his backhand, he's a little off balance. And again, Novak's like a dentist. He's going to find that little cavity, that little fissure, and he's going to peck away at it. And so Tsitsipas just couldn't, his backhand, he's driving it. And of course, when he can do offense with it, that's pretty powerful. But from a position behind the court, so what's he hitting there? He's hitting a flat shot that's about 70% as forceful as a forehand. And so Novak will take that math all day. He'll take that
Well,
day to do something. And then I think it forced Stefanos to then, when he had forehands, to go for more. You could see in the third and fourth set, he was trying to hit the forehand bigger, and he was starting to misfire on them. And so the whole thing fell a little out of whack. I thought in some ways the match was decided in the fourth set. I doubted Novak was going to lose that match in straight sets. I just knew he was going to make a go in the third. But the fourth, I mean, and I was talking, I've spoken throughout this tournament about the compelling nature of the fourth set. Just kind of vanished.
Yeah. I thought the match was decided in the fifth set, because keeping in mind that Stefanos had, come back against Zverev and won the fifth set, I thought, it's going to be decided right here. And he fought hard. He fought admirably in that set. But Novak has so much experience in this situation that it was just, it was impeccable, his play in the fifth set.
There's a great point. Novak serving at 4-3, 15 love, and Tsitsipas comes in deep into the backhand court, and Novak throws up this great lob. But you see, an on balance defensive lob. That's the great thing about Novak. Even when he seems as off balance as you try to get him, he's still pretty darn good on the balance. And I think that allows him to stay in so many points. And it also allows him to play these long matches because his body doesn't betray him the way someone else. I think in a way, I hate to say this because I so admire him. The way Nadal, you could see by that fourth set on Friday how physically worn out Nadal was from his serve to his forehands.
Well, the defense in the 1-1 game in the fifth set, which is what broke the camel. I almost said no pun intended. Pun intended. Broke the camel's back. That was the break of serve. It was an impeccable game by Novak. If you just look at it point by point, there's a lot of those points where you say, okay, Tsitsipas hit a bunch of good shots in that rally. He did a lot of things right. He missed a ton of first serves, don't get me wrong. But then from there, there were some amazing Djokovic returning to the backhand, defending with the backhand, the lob, as you mentioned, Joel, beautiful depth on the break point, add out. So much that Novak did incredibly well in that game where Tsitsipas, besides missing all the first serves, there can't be that much that he can possibly regret. But the flow of the match was strange, so I kind of want to ask about that. What did you make of Novak playing a really bad service game in the first set when he tried to serve it out, and then really having a long lull in the second set to go down 2-0? Because as much as there was success in the latter 3 sets by Novak, there was also that point where it was looking very, wow, this is kind of surprisingly flat from Djokovic.
He spoke about the tumble he took in the first set. He talked about that in his press conference. He said how, while it didn't really hurt him physically, it kind of had an energy impact, messes up your rhythm, tempo on the serve. So maybe that's part of it. But that second set was a lot of these sets were strange that way. It's almost like the dramatic sets were the first and to some degree the fifth because it was the decisive set, though in other ways not. I don't know. What did you think, Amy, of that second set?
I thought that there was, in the first set, Stefanos was called for a time violation. And what they were saying to the chair umpire during the changeover was, because of the way Chatrier is, it takes a long time to get to the towel. And they were needing to towel off. And if she was going to call the entire match being a stickler with the serve clock, then this might be an issue. And you saw Novak using his shirt as a towel in the first set. And, with his eyes, I think maybe his eyes were bothering him. I don't know if it was with sweat or what it was. He let that get to him. He let that issue kind of play with him, and then he had to dig himself out of it, like all the great mental giants of the sport do. And he got himself out of it. He had to it was just within himself. I'm going to calm myself down and work my way back.
The towel I tweeted in the middle, it reminded me of there were 2 players in the 70s and other stuff, Dick Stockton and Sandy Mayer. They had the towel and the shorts. That was once, long before you were alive, Gill. Some players would do that. And then a player I know wrote how that was the game's changed a little bit. It's a little different game now. So people, the talking, but I wonder of any player of the three, I think is likely to figure out the towel in the shorts that could work. Maybe you invent a new product. Maybe, it's not going to fall out. That's going to be there. If anyone could do that, it would be Novak. He's the one I think would be most likely to come up with that kind of solution.
I do think we've reached a bit of a breaking point with like the elite level of tennis that we've seen at Roland Garros, with no ball people on a clay court where the rallies are longer. It just seemed like whatever was going on, and no ball boys to give the towels, whatever was going on here, it needs to change. It was clearly a burden on the players to try to serve before the serve clock, just all in all.
So maybe it's 5 more seconds, or maybe it's when it starts, or I think it's got to be stuff with time clocks before it's stuff with kids touching towels, because the towel stuff, even before the pandemic, was being in question anyway, where I don't have to ball boy and carry your towel, thank you, and carry your sweat.
As someone
going after it for some of these players who go to after every point, and that's not exactly keeping the match moving. So there's got to be some way to figure this out. And believe me, I'm sure the PTPA, maybe that's a good thing for Novak and those guys to figure out.
That's fair, Joel. I will say, as a former ball boy, and also Blair Henley did a story on this for tennis.com earlier. Ball people don't mind for the most part. It's the people watching who seem to be offended by it a little bit more than the people who are actually doing it. I'll just say that in general terms, but I do feel like ball people.
Maybe you should form the BTPA, the ball boy players association. See what they all think and survey what they want to think of their work conditions. Maybe get a little raise on the per diem too.
Yeah, I would. That's much needed. There are too many tournaments around the world where the ball people aren't being paid. No, I'm joking.
Well, there were several points in this tournament where even one of Novak's matches, maybe it's the one against Rafa, where he was having to question which towel was his. Now, I've seen this. Can't we color code the towels?
Yeah, something. I know.
I mean, it seems like a simple fix.
Yeah, there's some simple logistical things that go on that way. Well, while we're on the middle part, I want to let people know the kid who Novak gave the racket to at the end of the match.
Yeah.
Novak said was cheering for him during the match. He said he was not just cheering, but he was in my ear the entire match, especially when I was 2 sets to love down. He was encouraging me. He was actually giving me tactics as well. Novak is laughing when he said, hold your serve, get an easy ball, then dictate, go to his backhand. So we have a future coach. So it'd be interesting to see what he can do. That's good to know. And of course, he was elated to get Novak's racket. I mean, he'll for the next 70 years.
Nice.
Very nice.
It was super awesome. I loved that. That was a great thing after the match. Let's talk about Novak's drop shot. He did save a set point in the third set in the semifinal with the drop shot. And in this match, it was absolutely mechanical and or clinically good. Let me just get the full stats here on Novak's drop shot. I thought it was a major factor, and we saw kind of Tsitsipas's court position is very modern, I'd say, in the sense that he's in a place very deep in the court where he's able to attack and defend with his strength and his heaviness of shot. But Novak hits 27 drop shots in this one, and 10 of them are outright winners, and he only misses one of them. Another 10, the rallies are continued, and he forces 2 errors. So the stats are 12 of them wins the point outright. Another 10 of them, he might have won, he might have lost, the rally continued. One of them he missed. That's just incredible execution, efficiency. How do you hit that many without missing some?
Yeah, I thought it might be a factor in this match, and he got it going. And I know a lot of his fans, they go crazy with this shot, because when he's missing, they are just pulling their hair out. But if you look at the stats on balance, it really is an effective shot on clay, and he uses it well.
Well, it fits well for his game, because I think it's not like he's just going to be a forthright, always attack volley guy. So it's a way for him to spread the dimensions of the court. And he creates so much depth. You've got to be on such vigilance back at the baseline for him. And then he made a number of great retrievals off of drops and some recarves with his own backhands. I mean, very, really impressive in the forward part of the court. I think he's understanding more and more what his front court game is, what his deal in there is. It's different than someone like Federer, who takes a short forehand and he gets to net. Whereas Novak doesn't always like doing that.
Yeah, he's been very inventive with his volleys and his drop shots, and the cat mouse points were great. I thought Tsitsipas did a nice job with them as well. You know, considering he's at a disadvantage, he's not as good as Novak there, but I thought he fought hard there. Overall takeaways: Novak's clay season, and honestly, 2021. Let's just do 2021. 2 majors down. 2 victories for Novak Djokovic. We talked a lot about the serve in Australia. I thought it was a lot about the forehand here. I think that we're starting to see the next dimension of Novak's game offensively. It doesn't seem like his body is aging too much, but my biggest takeaway from the clay court season is he figured things out with his forehand and really made it the weapon that it needed him to be over these last couple matches especially.
Well, this is where he, of our 3, is the one most equipped for sustained results at all the majors moving forward, between the lesser miles on his odometer and the skill set overall. Whereas we think, like we were talking the other day, Rafa, the French. So 12 months till your most chance to win another major, even though, of course, he's a contender at all the others. Nadal's won Wimbledon, the US Open, but he needs more help there. Same with Roger, Wimbledon, and okay, we don't know about the other majors, but Novak is just, the beat goes on. I mean, he's to me, he's the odds-on favorite at Wimbledon. I'm not saying he's going to win it without losing a set, but the person who needs to beat him there has to be playing A++ tennis to beat him.
He peaked at the right time, didn't he? He managed his clay court season to perfection. Yeah, he loses to Rafa at Rome, but then he beats him where it really counts for him at Roland Garros. And he is just the master of managing his season to peak at the right time during the Grand Slams. And he's on a tear right now. I cannot wait to see what he does at Wimbledon.
Grand Slam, Grand Slam is in play here with half of it gone. This is his 19th major title. He's now 1 away from a 3-way tie. Things are really heating up here with our 3. And we've really enjoyed bringing you this round by round coverage. It's been huge to feel your support throughout it. We thank you for watching along the way. And that'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts. We're available on all of those platforms. Like and comment on YouTube. And we will see you next time on the next episode of 3.